The short stories of Anton Chekhov. Story La Cigale. To Olga Ivanovna's wedding came all her friends and acquaintances. "Look at him. Isn't it true there is something in him?" she said to them, nodding towards her husband as if to justify her marriage to this simple, commonplace, in no way remarkable man. The bridegroom, Osip Stefanovich Dymov, was a doctor with the rank of titular counselor. He worked at two hospitals, in one as supernumerary ordinator, as dissector in the other. At one from 9 in the morning till midday, he received outpatients and worked in the wards. And finished with this, he took a tram to the second hospital and dissected bodies. His private practice was small, worth some 500 rubles a year. That was all. What more could be said of him? On the other hand, Olga Ivanovna, her friends and acquaintances were by no means ordinary. All were noted for something and fairly well known. They had names, they were celebrated, or if not celebrated yet, they inspired great hope for the future. A talented actor, clever, modest, a fine gentleman, a master of declamation who taught Olga Ivanovna to recite, a good-humored opera singer who told Olga Ivanovna with a sigh that she was throwing herself away. If she gave up idling and took herself in hand, she could make a famous singer. A few artists, chief of them, the genreist, animal and landscape painter, Ryabovsky, handsome, fair-haired, 25, successful at exhibitions, who sold his last picture for 500 rubles. He touched up Olga Ivanovna's etude and predicted a future for her. A violoncellist whose instrument wept, who frankly said that of all the women he knew, Olga Ivanovna alone could accompany a man of letters, young but already known for his short stories, sketches, and plays. Who else? Yes, Vasily Vasilevich, country gentleman, dilettante, illustrator, vignettist. With his love of the national epos and his passion for old Russian art on paper, china, and smoked plates, he turned out veritable masterpieces. In such society, artistic, free, and spoiled by fate, and though delicate and modest, oblivious of doctors save when ill, to whom Dymov sounded as impersonal as Tarasov or Sidorov. In such society, the bridegroom seemed out of place, needless and even insignificant, although he was really a very tall and very broad-shouldered man. His evening dress seemed made for someone else. His beard was like a shopman's, though it is true that he had been a writer or artist. This beard would have reminded them of Zola. The artist told Olga Ivanovna that with her flaxen hair and wedding dress, she was a graceful cherry tree covered with tender white blossoms in spring. "No, but listen," replied Olga Ivanovna, seizing his hand. "How suddenly all this happened. Listen, listen. I should tell you that Dymov and my father were at the same hospital. While my poor father was ill, Dymov watched day and night at his bedside. Such self-sacrifice. Listen, Ryabovsky, and you, writer, listen. This is very interesting. Come nearer. Such sacrifice of self, such sincere concern. I myself could not sleep at night and sat at my father's bedside, and suddenly I captivated the poor young man. My Dymov was up to his neck in love. In truth, things happened strangely. Well, after my father's death, we sometimes met in the street. He paid me occasional visits, and one fine evening, suddenly, he proposed to me. I cried all night and myself fell in love with him. And now you see, I'm married. Don't you think there is something in him? Something strong, mighty, leonine. Just now, his race is turned 3 quarters from us, and the light is bad. But when he turns round, just look at his forehead. Ryabovsky, what do you think of his forehead? Dymov, we are speaking of you. She turned to her husband. Come here. Give your honest hand to Ryabovsky. That's right. Be friends. With a simple, kindly smile, Dymov gave his hand to the artist and said, I'm delighted. There was a Ryabovsky at college with me. Was he a relation of yours? Olga Ivanovna was 22 years old, Dymov 31. After the marriage, they lived well. Olga Ivanovna hung the drawing room with drawings, her own and her friends, framed and unframed, and about the piano and furniture, arranged in pretty confusion Chinese parasols, easels, many colored draperies, poniards, busts, photographs. The dining room she decked with the bright colored oleographs, beloved by peasants, bast shoes and sickles, and these, with the scythe and hay rake in the corner, made a room in national style. To make her bedroom like a cave, she draped the ceiling and walls with dark cloth, hung a Venetian lantern over the bed, and set near the door a figure with a halberd. And everyone agreed that the young couple had a charming flat. Rising every day at 11, Olga Ivanovna sat at the piano, or if the sun shone, painted in oils. At 1 o'clock, she drove to her dressmaker's. As neither she nor Dymov was rich, many ingenious shifts were resorted to keep her in the new looking dresses which made such an impression on all. Pieces of old, dyed cloth, worthless patches of tulle, lace, plush, and silk came back from the dressmaker miracles, not dresses but ravishing dreams. Done with the dressmaker, Olga Ivanovna drove to some actress friend to learn theatrical news and get tickets for first nights or benefits, thence to an artist's studio or picture gallery, ending up with some other celebrity whom she invited to visit her or simply gossiped to. And those whom she counted celebrities and great men received her as an equal and told her in one voice that if she did not throw away her opportunities, her talents, taste, and intellect would yield something really great. She sang, played, painted, modeled, acted in amateur theatricals, and did everything well. If she merely made lanterns for illuminations, or dressed herself up, or tied someone's necktie, the result was invariably graceful, artistic, charming. But none of her talents outshone her skill in meeting and getting on terms of intimacy with men of note. Let a man get the least reputation or even be talked about, and in a single day she had met him, established friendly relations, and invited him to her home. And each new acquaintance was a festival in himself. She worshipped the well known, was proud of them, and dreamed of them all night. Her thirst was insatiable. The old celebrities departed and were forgotten, and new celebrities replaced them. And to these last, she grew accustomed in time. They lost their charms so that she sought for more. She dined at home with her husband at 5 o'clock. She was in ecstasies over his simplicity, common sense, and good humor. She jumped up from her chair, embraced his head, and covered it with kisses. You are clever, a noble man, Dymov, she exclaimed. You have only one drawback. You take no interest in art. You deny music and painting. I don't understand them, he answered kindly. All my life I have studied only science and medicine. I have not time for art. But that is awful, Dymov. Why awful? Your friends know nothing of science or medicine, yet you don't blame them for that. To each man his own. I don't understand landscapes or operas, but I look at the matter thus. If talented men devoted their lives to such things and clever men pay vast sums for them, that means they are useful. I don't understand them, but not to understand does not mean to deny. Give me your hand. Let me press your honest hand. After dinner, Olga Ivanovna drove away to her friends. After that, followed theaters or concerts. She returned after midnight and so every day. On Wednesdays, she gave evening parties. There were no cards and no dancing. Hostess and guests devoted themselves to art. The actor recited, the singer sang. Artists sketched in Olga Ivanovna's numberless albums. The hostess painted, modeled, accompanied, and sang. In the pauses between these recreations, they talked of books, the theater, and art. No women were present because Olga Ivanovna considered all women except actresses and dressmakers tiresome and contemptible. When the hall bell rang, the hostess startled and exclaimed triumphantly, It's he, meaning thereby some newly met celebrity. Dymov kept out of sight and few remembered his existence. But at 11:30, the dining room door flew open and Dymov appeared with a kindly smile, rubbing his hand, and said, Come, gentlemen, to supper. Whereupon all thronged to the dining room and each time found awaiting them the same things a dish of oysters, a joint ham or veal, sardines, cheese, caviar, mushrooms, vodka, and two decanters of wine. My dear maître d'hôtel, cried Olga Ivanovna, waving her hands ecstatically. You are simply adorable. Gentlemen, look at his forehead. Dymov, show us your profile. Look at him, gentlemen. It is the face of a Bengal tiger with an expression as kind and good as a deer's. My sweetheart. And the guests ate steadily and looked at Dymov, but soon they forgot his presence and returned to theatre, music, and art. The young couple were happy. Their life, it seemed, flowed as smoothly as oil, but the third week of the honeymoon was crossed by a cloud. Dymov got erysipelas at the hospital, and his fine black hair was cut off. Olga Ivanovna sat with him and cried bitterly, but when he got better, she bound a white handkerchief round his head and sketched him as a Bedouin. And both were happy. 3 days after he had returned to the hospital, a second misfortune occurred. I'm in bad luck, Mamma, he said at dinner. Today I had 4 dissections and I cut 2 fingers. I noticed it only just now. Olga Ivanovna was frightened, but Dymov smiled, dismissed the accident as a trifle, and said that he cut himself often. I am carried away by my work, Mamma, and forget what I'm about. Olga Ivanovna dreaded blood poisoning and at night prayed to God. But no consequences followed, and life, serene and happy, flowed without trouble or alarm. The present was all delight, and behind it came spring, spring already near, beaming and beckoning with 1,000 joys. Pleasures it promised without end. In April, May, and June, a villa far from town with walks, fishing, studies, nightingales. From June till autumn, the artists tour on the Volga. And in this tour, as member of the Artists Association, Olga Ivanovna would take part. She had already ordered 2 expensive dresses of gingham and laid in a stock of colors, brushes, canvas, and new palette. Almost every day came Ryabovsky to watch her progress in painting. When she showed him her work, he thrust his hands deep in his pockets, compressed tightly his lips, grunted, and said, "So, this cloud of your glares, the light is not right for evening. The foreground is somehow chewed up, and there is something you understand, and the cabin is somehow crushed. You should make that corner a little darker, but on the whole, it's not bad. I can praise it." And the less intelligibly he spoke, the better Olga Ivanovna understood. After dinner on the second day of Trinity Week, Dymov bought some hors and sweets and took train for his villa in the country. 2 whole weeks he had not seen his wife and he longed to be with her again. During the journey and afterwards, as he searched for the villa in a big wood, he felt hungry and fatigued and rejoiced at the thought of supping in freedom with his wife and having a sound sleep. So, looking at his parcel of caviar, cheese, and white fish, he felt happy. Before he found the villa, the sun had begun to set. The old servant said that her mistress was not at home, but that she would soon return. The villa, a very ugly villa with low ceilings, papered with writing paper, and uneven, chinky floors, contained only 3 rooms. In one was a bed, in another, canvas, brushes, dirty paper, and men's clothes and hats scattered on the chairs and window sills. And in the third, Dymov found 3 strangers, 2 dark and bearded, the third, evidently an actor, clean shaven and stout. "What do you want?" asked the actor in a bass voice, looking at Dymov shyly. "You want Olga Ivanovna? Wait, she'll be back shortly." Dymov sat down and waited. One of the dark men, looking at him drowsily and lazily, poured tea into his glass and asked, "Would you like some tea?" Dymov wanted both to eat and drink, but fearing to spoil his appetite, he refused the tea. Soon afterwards came footsteps and a familiar laugh. The door flew open and in came Olga Ivanovna wearing a big hat. On her arm hung a basket and behind her, with a big parasol and a deck chair, came merry, rosy-cheeked Ryabovsky. "Dymov!" cried Olga Ivanovna, radiant with joy. "Dymov!" she repeated, laying her head and both hands on his shoulder. "It is you! Why did you not come sooner? Why? "I couldn't, Mama. I am always busy, and when I end my work, there's generally no train." "How glad I am you've come. I dreamed of you all last night. Ugh, if only you knew how I love you and how opportunely you've come. You are my savior. Tomorrow we have a most original wedding." She laughed and retied her husband's tie. "A young telegraphist at the station, a certain Chikadalev, is going to be married. A handsome boy, not at all stupid. In his face, there's something strong, bearish. He'd sit admirably as model for a Varangian. We are all interested in him and promised to come to the wedding. He is a poor man, solitary and shy, and it would be a sin to refuse. Imagine! After church, there'll be the wedding. Then all go to the bride's house. You understand? The woods, the birds, songs, sunspots on the grass, and we ourselves, variegated spots on a bright green background. Most original, quite in the style of French Impressionists. But what am I to wear them off? I have nothing here, literally nothing. No dress, no flowers, no gloves. You must save me. Your arrival means that fate is on my side. Here are the keys, sweetheart. Take the train home and bring me my rose colored dress from the wardrobe. You know it. It's the first you'll see. Then in the chest of drawers, the bottom right hand drawer, you'll find two boxes. At the top, there's only tulle and other rags, but underneath you'll find flowers. Bring all the flowers carefully. I don't know. Then I'll choose. And buy me some gloves. All right, said Dymov. I'll get them tomorrow. How tomorrow? Asked Olga Ivanovna, looking at him with surprise. You can't do it tomorrow. The first train leaves at 9 and the wedding is at 11. No, dear, go tonight. If you can't get back yourself tomorrow, send a messenger. The train is nearly due. Don't miss it, my soul. All right. Ah, how sorry I am to have to send you, she said, and came tears into her eyes. Why did I promise the telegraph clerk like a fool? Dymov hastily gulped down a glass of tea and, still smiling kindly, returned to the station. And the caviar, the cheese, and the white fish were eaten by the actor and the two dark men. It was a still moonlight night of July. Olga Ivanovna stood on the deck of a Volga steamer and looked now at the river, now at its beautiful banks. Beside her stood Ryabovsky and affirmed that the black shadows on the water were not shadows but a dream, that this magic stream with its fantastic shimmer and this unfathomable sky, these mournful banks which expressed but the vanity of life and the existence of something higher, something eternal, something blessed. To forget ourselves, to die, to fade into memories. The past was trivial and tedious, the future insignificant. But this magic night, this one night of life, would soon be past, would have hurried into eternity. Why then live? And Olga Ivanovna listened first to Ryabovsky's voice, then to the midnight silence, and thought that she was immortal and would never die. The river's turquoise hue, a hue she had never seen before, the sky, the banks, the black shadows, and the irresponsible joy which filled her heart, all whispered to her that she would become a great artist, that somewhere far away, beyond these distances, beyond the moonlight night, somewhere in infinite space, there awaited success and glory and the love of the world. When she looked earnestly into the distance, she saw crowds, lights. She heard solemn music and cries of rapture. She saw herself in a white dress surrounded by flowers cast at her from all sides. And she believed that here, beside her, leaning on the bulwark, stood a really great man, a genius, the elected of God. He had already accomplished things beautiful, new, uncommon. What he would do when time had ripened his great talents would be greater immeasurably. That was written legibly in his face, his expressions, his relations to the world around. Of the shadows, the hues of night, the moonlight, he spoke in language all his own, and unconsciously betrayed the power of his magic mastery over nature. He was handsome and original, and his life unhampered, free, alien to the trifles of the world, seemed the life of a bird. It is getting cold, said Olga Ivanovna, shuddering. Ryabovsky wrapped her in his cloak and said mournfully, I feel myself in your power. I am a slave. Why are you so ravishing tonight? He looked at her steadily, and his eyes were so terrible that she feared to look at him. I love you madly, he whispered, breathing against her cheek. Say to me but one word, and I will not live. I will abandon my art. He stammered in his extreme agitation. Love me. Love. Don't speak in that way, said Olga Ivanovna, closing her eyes. It is terrible. And Dymov? What is Dymov? Why Dymov? What have I to do with Dymov? The Volga, the moon, the beauty, my love, my raptures, and no Dymov at all. Ah, I know nothing. I do not want the past. Give me but one moment, 1 second. Olga Ivanovna's heart beat quickly. She tried to think of her husband, but her whole past, her marriage, Dymov, even the evening party seemed to her trivial, contemptible, dull, needless, and remote. And indeed, who was Dymov? Why Dymov? What had she to do with Dymov? Did he exist really in nature? Was he only a dream? He has had more happiness than he could expect. A simple and ordinary man, she thought, closing her eyes. Let them condemn me, let them curse me, but I will take all and perish, take all and perish. We must experience everything in life. Lord, how painful and how good. Well, what? What? Stammered the artist, embracing her. He kissed her hands greedily while she strove to withdraw them. You love me, yes? Oh, what a night! Oh, night divine! Yes, what a night! She whispered, looking into his eyes, which glittered with tears. Then she looked around her, clasped her arms about him, and kissed him firmly on the lips. We are near Kainshma, said a voice somewhere across the deck. Heavy footfalls echoed behind them. A waiter passed from the buffet. Waiter, cried Olga Ivanovna, laughing and crying in her joy. Bring us some wine. Pale with excitement, the artist sat on a bench and stared at Olga Ivanovna with graceful, adoring eyes. But in a moment he shut these eyes and said with a weary smile, I am tired. And he leaned his head against the bulwark.